So basically now what we're doing is we're talking about the stuff in Kiwis Can Fly. So I actually started off here in 1977 doing some flying. Did about 15 hours here before I joined the Air Force in 1978 at the age of 18. And but I joined as a navigator because that's what they offered me. So there I am standing in front of a Devon at the age of 18. And I still always wanted to be a pilot. That was always in my mind. But the Devon, I don't know if many of you know about that, that's the military version of a dove. And it's like a flying brick. And I really don't know how they get airborne, but I think it's that they just get their wheels up and then they wait for the curvature of the earth to drop the earth. But if you look on just behind the cockpit there, you can see, you might be able to see a perspex bubble. That's where the sextant went. And as a navigator, that's where I was hanging a lot of the time, standing on a chair, hanging in that bubble. So, and that's when air sickness was a major drama for me. But I did get over that in the end. So that's the Devon. And after qualifying as a navigator, things got better. And ended up on these things, and they don't get airborne off the curvature of the earth. They do a lot better than that. They can climb at 6,000 feet a minute. So the old P3, that was just a really mean machine, and it's still going now, but being replaced at the moment. As a navigator on P3s, search and rescue was a big deal for us, and one of my first search and rescue jobs was looking for the crashed DC-10. And that's when I got pulled out on standby. They said, come up to base ops. They gave me that signal and said, you and your crew have to go down to Antarctica to search for the DC-10. At that point, they didn't know that it wasn't coming back because they still had fuel, theoretically, in the tanks. So we all thought we were going looking for an aeroplane that had lost communications, and that it would probably turn up by the time we got halfway down there. But it never did, of course. And just a little bit of a recap. It was a screw-up, I believe, by the airline and the pilots. The track on the left is where the pilots thought they were. The track on the right was what the airline had changed the coordinates to. And as you can see, the result is that they hit no orbits, but the reason I think the pilots were also to blame is that they were way too low for the conditions. So as pilots, we have rules with life safe altitudes, as you know, and they broke them. So both sides were to blame, in my mind. And eventually I left the Air Force, having done a commercial pilot's licence up here while I was a navigator. Did it with Brian Langley and a few of those guys. And left the Air Force, went across to Sydney, did my senior commercial subjects, and then went up to New Guinea for a few years. That is a 207 in Kiwis, which is in the Western Province, and we used to fly, we started flying drums of fuel from Kiwis to Tabubu, and that was a real laugh because they'd take all the seats out except the pilot's seat, and they'd stick one 44-gallon drum next to you and then another one behind you, and tie them in. And you didn't want them to come loose because that would be the end of it. Yeah. But quite often I would come out of the office and it'd be sitting on its butt with the nose wheel up in the air, and the guys would say, there you are, boss, aeroplane's ready to go. You go, no, you're going to have to move the drums forward a little bit. So what I just got to do, even when the wheel was on the ground, I would come out and I would go up to the propeller and just put my hand under the little cone there, the orange cone, and lift it. And if it was too easy to lift, I'd get them to move the drums again. And that was how you could see whether your centre of gravity was okay. So that was a pretty tough learning experience, but good fun all the same. And I think, what was I, 22 or something like that. And best flying I ever did, New Guinea. That's the sort of thing that you were flying into. None of them more than about 400 metres long, propped on the side of a hill, all sorts of turbulence. And the next one here was at 8,500 feet, one-way strip. So like I say, best flying I ever did. It was just awesome. It's a young man's game, mate. You know, you don't want to be doing that at our age, or my age. And this is one of my favourite photos. That's me flying the Islander. That's a 207 wing up the top with a reflection in it. And that's being flown by a mate of mine called Rob Craven, who was a captain in A380 captain at Cathay. So that's where we all ended up in the airlines. And then from there I got into Qantas. Now I don't have too many photos of the early days of Qantas, so I thought I'd impress you with the engineers panel on the 747-200 because the first job we had was second officer job, and you basically were a radio operator, in-flight relief, and we had to operate the panel as well, so they gave us an engineer's licence. So it was pretty rapid promotion in Qantas at that time. I joined when I was 25. When I was 28, I was a simulator instructor as a first officer, and when I just turned 31, I was a captain on the 747. So a lot of hard work, but also a little bit of luck being in the right place at the right time. And shortly after I became a captain, they had a downturn. It was the early 90s, and so I took a 4-year leave of absence from Qantas and went to Japan Airlines. And I was based in Anchorage in Alaska, and that's Anchorage, that's the approach to, I can't remember the runway direction there now, but that was pretty amazing, and that was based on flying freighters, 747 freighters, over to Europe, no passengers to worry about, just get in and fly. It was just great times. And that's looking towards the front of the freighter from the inside, and that's the nose cone up at the front where they load it in. So they're pretty monstrous things. We used to carry about 120 tonnes of freight across to Europe. And anyone who has a globe will be able to recognise that. That was basically looking down on the Earth from above, from above the North Pole. The track we used to take across to Europe was pretty much north from Anchorage, over the top of Greenland, and then south into Europe over Norway. Sometimes went directly over the North Pole as well, which is a bit further up. And then they offered some of us to go to Hawaii for a base, and that was pretty hard to say no. So that was we started flying passengers for Japan Airlines out of Hawaii into Japan. But then Qantas made me an offer that I couldn't refuse: return to work or don't ever return to work. So I had to go back, although I really wanted to stay in Hawaii. So I ended up back in Qantas, and I think about 2002 I went onto the 747-400 as a captain. And one of my favourite approaches was that runway 13 in Hong Kong. And I'm guessing that photo was taken from the checkerboard that you usually lined up on further out. It was a real challenge, that runway. In bad weather it was a real challenge, in good weather it was still a challenge, because it was the aeroplane has a lot of momentum. You come around a corner and you had to line up, and you had to make sure you were on the right 3-degree approach path at the end. So when you did a good job there, you felt quite satisfied with yourself.
Did you have to go round?
Sorry?
Did you have to go round?
No. Usually people would go around, because a lot of my mates did, because you'd get to the minima and you couldn't see enough to keep going, right. Not because you'd screwed up the turn. And this is the sort of thing that, interesting times. That's 747-400 in Vancouver being de-iced, and you can see how well organised they are. There's about 8 trucks doing that. And the reason for that is if you only had one truck, by the time you got to the other side, you'd have to go and start again. So they'd come out and they'd do that all in about 3 minutes, and then you'd put down the runway and get airborne before you iced up again. So yeah, pretty interesting in the cold weather procedures. There I am under the 747 in London. You can see the size of it.
Yeah.
And that's another one on the same day. Must have been quite nice weather for London. No warm gear on. 2017 I transitioned from 747 to the A380. This is my favourite 747 photo. It's also on the cover of the book. I don't know who's going to sue me for putting it there. But I did find the photo on Facebook, so I figure that's fair game.
Yeah.
But it's a great photo. It's just, and the heat coming out of the engines there is unbelievable.
Do you know where the planes have been taken out?
That's taken off out of Sydney to the south. I don't know how they took it. Must have had someone on another aeroplane, I guess. And that's the 380 in the hangar. When we were doing our course, we had to go and have a walk around it in the hangar. You can just see how massive that wing is. Just goes forever. And my mate Wayne Bennett down the bottom there, he said it's okay for me to use his photos. So, that's taken in Heathrow. Wayne Bennett's a British guy. But yeah, that's a pretty impressive photo. That's the cockpit in the 380. Yeah, having spent years and years and years on the 747 and always saying I'd never go to an Airbus, I have to say that they both have their good points and neither is better than the other. In fact, in recent times I reckon Airbus might have had a little bit of a jump on Boeing. I think the A380 is a pretty amazing aeroplane. But real nice aeroplane, and you know, the systems of the Airbus system is different than the Boeing system, but the Airbus system is basically more designed to stop you from killing yourself. Although you can't override it if you need it, but you need to know how. So a lot of guys don't understand how to override it, so they're subject to the computer's whims. And there's another one of the beautiful machine. And I think the last, oh no, here we go. This is just a flight that I did out of Dallas, 2019 maybe. And it was 18 hours and 33 minutes, which was, at that time, it was a sort of a long distance record. But if you look at where it starts in the United States, you see there's a band of weather there. That band of weather was on the other side of the start line when we left, but by the time the track had all been done, that band of weather had moved to the right. But the reason we got that jink at the beginning there is because we had to go about an hour and a half south down into Mexico to get around that weather.
Oh.
And then we had to go, and then they sent us back up over San Diego to avoid winds. So it ended up being 18 hours and 33 minutes. And that's a close up of the departure area, and you can see the band of weather, which was actually to the left of us when we left. And to finish off, this is the cover art for my next book, which is, and the title is What Could Possibly Go Wrong? And it's another Terry Gordon book. It's volume 2 of Terry Gordon, so that should be out in a couple of months. Yeah, so, and hopefully better than the last one. But anyway, so I believe that's the last photo, and it's a good one to stop on anyway.
I've got some questions.
Sorry?
I've got some questions. How many hours have you done?
22,000.
Not bad for a little Kiwi bloke. Well, call that experience. Can you tell us what's the difference in the simulators from now and what we had to start with? They've moved ahead a lot, haven't they?
Yeah, they're more accurate with the feel. The original ones were real, sort of like balancing on one leg all the time, you know. They're unstable. The new ones are pretty accurate. The visuals in the new simulators are like, if you look outside, it looks like the real thing. There's people walking around, and there's the accuracy of the scenery is like data, it's like real life.
So that makes it feel like a real plane.
Yeah. So one of the things I used to say is if you go into a simulator session for 4 hours and it's bad weather and it's dark, when you come out of the simulator, you're almost depressed. And then all of a sudden you look out and it's sunny outside, and it gives you a bit of a shock because your brain gets into that bad weather and darkness, you know. That's how accurate it is.
Can you tell us a story about one of your hairiest moments up there in the hills? And
there's heaps of them.
That's another book.
They're all in the book, but well, you couldn't do normal approaches in a lot of those cases. quite often do you know anyone know Frank Parker?
Yes.
Well, he came up and he went flying with me for a while up there and he shat his pants. Because to get him into some of these places, you had to go, trees go past your wingtip and you know, below the tops of hills and stuff like that, and he just couldn't grasp the concept for a start that you didn't do a normal circuit. You know, and there was one time where I came into one of those high level airstrips that was going up into a dead end, and the cloud was down to about the last 50 metres. So touch down underneath the cloud, and then disappear up into the cloud, and then take off in the cloud and come out the bottom into the sunlight. So things like that. Yeah.
I'll read the rest.
Anyone who goes to New Guinea nearly kills themselves a few times in the first year, and they learn. Always leave yourself 2 ways out, not one. Because if you only got one and it closes.
So are you back on the A380 now? Or?
No, I took a redundancy.
Oh, you did, okay.
Yeah, I wish I was, but...
Yeah, oh, they're all coming back, aren't they?
Well, that's right, but unfortunately with the seniority system, it means that you can't.
Well, you can't go back. We have
Can't
to
go
start
back,
again.
no.
So what are you doing now then?
Don't ask him that.
Don't ask me. No, I funnily enough, well, I will tell you,
You're brave.
I got bored, so I saw this job advertised out at the airport refueling jets, and I thought, I'll go and do that for a while I've got nothing better to do, and that's what I'm doing right now.
You probably enjoyed it.
Oh, I was, but I'm bored now.
Not quite the same time as petrol tanker.
Could you do a commercial?
Oh, I could. I mean, I could go flying domestic
Yeah.
here or even anywhere really, but
Yeah.
it's whether people think that at 63 it's worth taking you on. That's the problem these days. Well, that's right. I'd like that's ultimately what I'd like to do, is be a simulator instructor. But apparently, there's a lot of other people with the same idea. All the guys who took redundancy.
Got used to being at home.
Yeah.
Why did Qantas get rid of so many people?
Oh, short-term thinking, money. Yeah. But they're paying for it now.
Yeah. So you're doing any GA flying at all?
No.
Nothing?
No.
You don't come out here and decide to go and fly a bloody
I will.
roller or something like that?
I will eventually, but I'm actually paragliding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
More
So
fun.
Something different. It's more like being a bird then.
Yep.
Fair enough.
You can go hundreds of kilometres on a good day though, by flying thermals and
Thanks you very much.